Hello everyone, welcome to a quick episode. There was an idea on my mind, I had to get it out there, and it's in regards to the branch of philosophy concerned with metaphysics and what really comes after the physics. But anyways, the title of today's episode is Infinity, the Life of Meaning. This morning I was wondering about something, a couple things actually, and one of them was that what is the meaning of life? Just casual morning, self-inquiry. I was wondering about the meaning of life, and there's the concept, you can say a conceptual way we can wonder about it, and then there is, I consider it the contextual, where are we that we're considering the meaning of life. So the question arose to me, is the meaning of life infinite? And for a moment I was thinking that because we're temporary, there's a sense of loss. And so there is meaning, there is motivation, there is inspiration. It's as if you have something for some time, and if you don't do anything with it, it will be gone. So incredible motivation to use it. There was even this Sufi mystic poet by the name of Rumi, where he has this remarkable quote from 700 years ago. He says, "Before death takes away all that is given, give away all there is to give." So we can see that on some level, before even wondering about the infinitude of reality, that the meaning of temporary life is that you have been given something, or you are something, and you utilize it. And when you utilize it, what do you accumulate? You accumulate experiences. Now, in my vision, in my inner realms, I was wondering, okay, let's say it's an infinite thing. Let's wonder about the psychology of the first human being that attains a sort of infinity. And this infinity includes the body, includes the reality of also the mind. But in regards to the body, that means I'm wondering about the psychology of an immortal person, if you can think of it that way. So as an immortal person, I was like, okay, that temporary option is gone, right? So it becomes raw experience, something as if it's as if like there is no ending. So it's like endless exploration. And I thought about what would that do to this psychology of the human being we see now, that it is in a limited environment, if it was infinite. One thing is that the concept of meaning would become meaningless. That means there would be infinite meaning, or it would be like a number that has no end. You see? So it in some sense, it's like the most... how would I say it? I'm suggesting pretty much that there is no meaning for infinity. It can't have meaning, or its meaning will not have an end, and we can't even state it. When we look at the existential reality in regards to the body, what is happening? Matter is rising and falling from the void. What we're considering as intelligence, as our intelligence, is attributed to the body. The body was a part of Earth that stood up. And so it leaves the room of existence. It's like wondering about the meaning of life, but life is like a journey, and it's a journey with an end. It's a temporary journey. So there, from the ending of it, the value system comes. But if it didn't have an ending, the value system could not be shaped. Or it would endlessly go on to change. That means it's like, what is an infinite being trying to understand? There's nothing. There's no end to things. So infinity cannot be understood on some level. There's no point to understanding something that never ends. It's equivalent to listening to a lecture, but the lecture is going on for eons, Imagine there's a being giving a talk. I'm a temporary being giving a talk here, a temporary human being. But imagine there's an infinite being, and its speech has not ended. And who can say what the meaning of an infinite speech is? There is no end. I was also thinking of how desire comes into the meaning of life. There's desires that the body has, which give it meaning, which occupies the time that we are here in, Most of human life is going to survival. After we complete our physiological survival, we go towards our psychological survival. And our psychological survival has to do in what role we're playing in the story of civilization. And many people are engaged, with the world we have built here. Nature really, it just comes and goes. And because it keeps coming and going, what attachment can we have to an infinitely changing system, In Buddhist thought, they speak about detachment. There are 3 jewels in Buddhism, if I remember them correctly. They're impermanence, imperfection, and incompleteness. Something of the sort. What that means is it's like you look at this world and you realize, all right, this is not permanent. We're here for some time. You look at it in regards to imperfection. You want to perfect something. You want to, let's say, build the most advanced civilization, but no. At some point, there's not that it can't be done, but there's a limit. It's like what Salvador Dali says: do not fear perfection. You will never reach it. Like an artist that is drawing an artwork, and the artist can endlessly, update the artwork, but at some point the artist is like, no, okay, I'm done. This is it. I'm done with this. I'm moving on to the next, you see. And then we have incompleteness in regards to, not just perfecting something, but in wondering about the end of something that has happened, right? That's the nature of reality, that the mind can desire something that may potentially surpass the, let's say, 100 years lifespan of the human being. So really, the meaning of life for now, I would say, for human beings is in their attitude. And their attitude is based on how they are responding or reacting to the type of world they see. If somebody sees a world where there's cruelty in, of course it's easy to be cruel. If somebody sees a world where it's like cruelty is an incredible disadvantage to an evolving species, then in some sense it's like, and their attitude changes in regards to what they see. Now, there's levels to this in regards to how ancient systems of thought were wondering about, okay, who is looking through our eyes? And so they had it divided between the unknown and the known. The known is what can be contained in form. The unknown is really what is containing the form. It's like there's a formless container to the unknown, but due to its nature of being formless, it is space. So it's as if there's a component to human experience where you're just space, aware of what's in you, what's in your field of vision, in your field of awareness. And then there's association, identification with the body, and then with its limitations come certain meanings or certain urges to surpass one's limits, right? But if you were an infinite being, it would be infinitely surpassing your limits. And I feel that there's something there that makes, really, it's not that the meaning of life is infinite, it's that infinity is what is, if there was an infinite being, let's say, from that perspective, it would be as if meaning is a part of its life, is a part of its journey. Like I'm thinking about just like how people change their clothing, it's like they don't wear the same t-shirt that they had, like, I don't know, 10 years ago when they were a young child, you know what I mean? Like, so it's as if we change how we are suited in the reality, right? So I feel it's the same with meaning, that meaning is what we are dressing an unknown attention that is mobilized in a known body. So really we are dressed in meaning, there is no meaning once you take that meaning off, How many human beings have been born in cultures where their environment has given them a sort of meaning to life, and then their whole life's journey has become in realizing, I'm not just what I was told I was, I was thinking about time machines, and I was thinking about the concept of desire. Personally, I'm a cigarette smoker. And I've noticed that there's something that the human being is like a type of intelligence that is seeking states. That means if a meaning is like some sort of written conceptual story, it's as if we're really not, I'm saying that the attention that is here, the intelligence that is here, is not really seeking stories, but it's seeking a state. I feel an immortal being, or let's say some sort of chained infinite titan, somebody who has been through a cycle, or let's say like ping pong, or there was this show where this guy was stuck in playing ping pong forever. And it's like, what happens when there is so much repetition? There comes a build-up for something else, therefore suggesting that we are not content with findings that repeat. We seek more, right? And in the Buddhist, if I can go back to this, in Buddhist perspective, there's this concept of reincarnation, and in the concept of reincarnation, it's as if there's a sort of, in yogic and Buddhist thought, it's like you're this multidimensional attention, and you're endlessly coming back to the same room, to the degree that Tibetan Buddhists, like when they see a human being born, of course they have a sort of celebration of life. They care for the being that has emerged, but at the same time they're like, oh man, another being fell into the same cycle of karma. The yogis had a term, they called it samsara. What it would, in modern terms, that would be called simulation. It's as if we're caught in a simulation, and endlessly the simulation is going on. Now I'm saying that if we had a sort of grounding or rooting back into the attention where the world is changing in, I thought about, okay, so an infinite being endlessly just incarnating or taking shape and living in accordance to the shape. On some level, it would be just infinite experience till the end of time. On another angle, it would be to stop. That means, imagine you were a being and you were immortal, and you had lived so many, you had seen the next 10,000 years or 100,000 years or 1,000,000 years in the future, and you were still around somewhere in the cosmos, It's like at some point, right, you either stop looking for meaning, you stop seeking a a sort of validity. It's kind of like an unconscious process that is endlessly going. Or when that being, let's say infinite person realizes infinity has no end, that this changing system of form and phenomenology has no end, then the being seeks to stop, right? And this is the biggest wisdom in all mystical practice, where it was, you can say, call it meditation, call it prayer, where the person was for a moment stopping their ego-driven psychological story. That means think of it this way. Right now we're in a dualistic system. Language is dualistic. Even the cosmos, in regards to cosmology, is dualistic. There's night and day, in regards to culture, there's right and wrong. But imagine now this system of right and wrong becoming infinite. There's infinite types of wrong, infinite types of right. And so at some point we're like, okay, what is right and wrong anymore? And we see that it is infinity just left there, a changing infinitude. It's like if we were beyond the body, if there was a sort of presence to attention beyond the embodied body, where a lot of our desires emerge from, it would just be a watcher. I mean, when we look at reality, whoever you are listening to me right now, just look at your moment, this moment you're existing in. What do you find, right? You find color, you find shape, and then you also find space, but all of these, you find your body as well, but all of these are in the view of being watched. There was what was his name? I think his name was Manly P. Hall, this man who said this very interesting quote, where he said, not a lot of people are aware that they are aware. That awareness, which holds everything within it, right? Like right now as I'm talking, it's like this balcony I'm on, it's in my awareness. My body is in my awareness. My voice is in my awareness. But something that is in my awareness that cannot have another is really just this watcher. It's as if there's a part to our intelligence that is watching everything before it embodies in everything, right? And so the question comes, what is watching everything? What is aware that it is aware? And it's kind of like nothing is aware of everything. And it's nothing to the everything. To itself, it could be not nothing. In regards to the time machine idea, I was pretty much thinking, imagine a person had time machine and imagine they didn't have self-control. They would infinitely go, into different timelines, making their past their future again, It would be an infinite updating system. And really, if it is infinite, if there is something that's intelligent here and it's infinite, there is no meaning. There's nothing you can lose. There is change, but if change is being watched from a, let's say, superior dimension or whatnot, you know what it is? It's like you start off cleaning the room of a house, and then you realize there is so many rooms that a part of you is like, doesn't mean anything anymore to clean one tiny fraction of infinity, So human psychology, if it shifts into a perspective that it's infinite, the meaning of life becomes meaningless. Now, there is this thing that Terence McKenna, this great speaker, said. He said what the telescope was to the 16th century astronomer is what computers are to mathematics, in the sense that there's certain next level calculations we can make on computers in regards to mathematical meaning that we can't in regular perception, let's say. For example, there's the Mandelbrot set, the notion of a fractal. The as above, so below, infinite echo. Right now, because we're finite beings, it's not startling to us. It's not something where we would say, oh my God, it's like, what's the meaning of infinite life? Because it ends, there's meaning, and human beings are afraid of death, but death is really giving us meaning. If there was no death, it's as if like there would be nothing to lose. It would just be emotional state preservation. And when I say there is no meaning to an infinite, let's say, journey, what happens is that the type of meaning we seek in it is important to consider. That if we are seeking a story, if we're trying to analyze it, there may be issues. There may be incompleteness in regards to analyzing an infinite system. But if you wonder about what is it here for, what does it push us? I mean, this completely provides a new perspective for religion. It changes the approach of attention from understanding to playing its part, or just being present. I mean, how odd is it that we are such a temporary being in a world so vast? It's as if, like, what's the point of all this existence? And to a temporary being, there is no point to it. It's just huge. It's just this vastness. But to an infinite being, it fulfills the infinite exploration ideal, the ideal. Right now, even as I'm speaking, the desire to want to figure out what the meaning of this world is, it's really relevant to the body. It's the sense of something that can be lost. If nothing can be lost, there's what motivation? So this leads to infinity not being something to be understood, but something to, in some sense, be accepted. Which in turn leads to love. That means it's like the meaning of an infinite game is to love being. And the meaning of a temporary finite system, or finite life, is to understand and express to that. It's like the universe isn't a photograph where it's just the same picture. It's like a changing film that goes on. And in a film, what happens? There's new actors. A film that endlessly is going, I was thinking that if imagine time machines are made and you can go in the future in a store and just buy like a time machine keychain, you know, and it just takes you back like, I don't know, maybe like a week back. You can endlessly keep going a week back. If a person has an ability to change, you know, then it's like to constantly change their moment, then it's like they can never live to the next day if they're unsatisfied with how their moment went, if they had that time machine keychain. You know, there's a quote from George Orwell in 1984 where he says, "Ignorance is bliss." And in my pursuit of attempting to comprehend, to not know the unknown, but to, in some sense, realize the unknown, it's as if the less we know, the more surprises there is. The more we know, we take away that sense of surprise. So knowledge could lead to a lack of emotional consideration for the unexpected. And really, I mean, this system of life, what can happen if a person follows their desire, you know? Let's say desire leads to power. Power becomes equal to law. And law is like how at least a certain context is created. It's the boundaries, subjective boundaries to a view. And if we have, let's say, the notion of the creator and the creation mindset, it's as if when a person reaches the level of the creator, it's inconceivable. It's like those who are getting close to God are getting close to the inconceivable. Those who are worshiping God are worshiping the inconceivable. Infinity, let's say you lived in duality and you were like, man, I'm bored with just right and wrong, so you're like, okay, infinite right and wrong again, you know? So you sought infinity, and now let's say you were an infinite being for an infinite amount of time, and you were like, okay, is there anything else? That means what would be the philosophical inquiry of an infinite person, of an immortal? You know, it would be to move beyond conception, because the end of conception is endless. So it could be that attention that is present in this universal sector is not actually a creature living on a planet. It is an urge to return to to the inconceivable, which would be another way of stepping out of the simulation. An infinitely changing simulation. You know, the most bizarre thing about life is a person's earliest memory. You know, when I look at my earliest memory, it's like before that it was just, I don't want to say nothing because that's too easy, but I want to say that it's like there was just sight. It's like sight before identification with anything is just watching, change. And really, what if permanence was part of the meaning of life? If we wanted things to just be the way they are, for how long? You know, I think about this often. Right now, it's not a question. I mean, right now, people shouldn't care for this. But I'm thinking, like, in 10,000 years, let's say the human species still is around, you know? It's like, are we going to overpopulate the whole universe, and then what? You know, keep overpopulating other universes? It's like, after some point, the continuation of the same pattern may become boring. And it could be that the reason it has not become boring yet is because there's variations in it, right? It's like an unknown experiencer experiencing known reality. Now the known reality changes because the unknown experiencer keeps moving. So it could be that if there is an immortal, let's say there's in the future the first immortal is hearing my talk, you know, and that immortal person's like, man, there's no self-help books for immortals. What is this? You know, maybe this talk could be helpful then. It would really be to shift from dynamism into a reality that is static. That means an infinite person will be tired of change. I mean, what else can an infinite being do? You know? It's like been there, done that. Like in infinite times, been there, done that. You know, I was thinking that this may be a strange thing to say, but we should be grateful for reality's position right now, that there's endings. Right now, a lot of people have minds, but we don't know what the mind is. And one thing we know for certain is that the mind is not an object. It's aware of the object. It may be projected from an objective position, but it's not an object. And we also know that it's not a subject. How do we know that the mind isn't a subject? Not just in regards to speech, like talking about it. I'm saying, how is the mind not a subject? Because many subjects come and go. So the mind, really, the core, the essence of the mind is an unknown, non-conception-based viewer of conception. It's like we start in life being a personality in the universe, then we realize we're the presence of the universe. Then it's, you know what it is? It's like a person conscious of a universe. Then we become a universe conscious that there's people. You know, it's like existence is the surface of energy, which transforms, changes from form to form. But in the depths of, let's say, an energetic truth, it surpasses time. It surpasses matter. Or it surpasses changing matter. That means it's like from an unknown dimension, a component of the self is just viewing everything as a photograph, and from the known dimension, it's a movie. But any moment you stop in the movie and there's a single frame, from that single frame, you realize the timeless nature. The meaning of life can't be infinite, because then there would be no meaning. But if there is infinity, and infinity learns to accept itself, sometimes I wonder if all the people on the planet, they had an impermanent mindset, what would it be like? What would it be if we woke up to a world and people were like, yeah, there's no death? There would be literally no fear. It's like before death, the meaning of the known dimensions of self is to just seek the unknown. Beyond death, the unknown is the meaning. It could be that knowledge has been zooming in and distracting us from zooming out into the true nature of reality, the unknown presence. It's like language has been the greatest blindfold of greater dimensions of reality that are present. You know, our meaning is kept in verbs, right? We want to do things to see meaning in life. But I feel that if there are greater dimensions, in the greater dimensions, the meaning of life is no longer doing. So those who can accept how they are being, they are closer into finding contentment with unknown nature, with the nature of the unknown even. You know, people think about the things they don't have, and they wonder if they had them, what would it be? But I don't know how many people wonder about having infinite things, for example. You know, if you had a car, imagine you had infinite cars, right? Or if you had memories, you'd have infinite memories. What is looking through our eyes? If it's identified with a thing, meaning. If it realizes things change, then it's like, what meaning? You know, one of the most strangest things is that we consider the brain to be a sort of storage unit, okay? So it's like our brains are kind of like, they have a sort of limit of information they can process. Now, if the information our brains, this couple pound flesh can process is limited, and if the reality is limitless, it's just endless, you can't see the edge of the sky, then it can't be to understand. It's as if we don't have the instruments to understand the whole world, you know. So we're left with understanding a corner of the world. So the best thing we can do in that corner is try to figure out how that corner, the experience of one corner of existence can reveal the nature of the whole existence. I've written here, life of the mind beyond embodied desire. What would that life look like? It's like we have this view, it's either a human being maintaining its body, or it's like, let's take a transcendentalist approach and say it's a transcendental being that is obsessed with embodiment. It's as if nothing is addicted into being something and everything. You see, guys, this is the thing about mysticism. It's not for the faint of heart, you know. It's for those who are wondering about the what-ifs that surpass all that they know. One thing that I would like listeners to take away from this episode is if infinity is the end of meaning, then we as human beings need to completely shift our approach from trying to understand life and wonder what else can happen. This means that there could be new verbs hidden in the collective unconscious that require to be discovered. The view I have of knowledge and language, first of all, knowledge is kept in language. And what is language? Language is images. That means somebody who's knowledgeable, they've seen images of reality. And it's as if in regards to your intellect, you compartmentalize image. When somebody speaks about something they know, it's actually a memory being reactivated. You know, I would like to say the meaning of life is unknown, but I'll say that again. The meaning of life is the unknown. Which could mean a couple things. It could mean that nobody can know it. It could mean that we still haven't known it. And it could be the renunciation of the ego, which is the sense of self that is keeping the knowledge in the moment. That means it's like when we let's say, hear something, we're like, how does that person know it, right? It goes to their sense of self. Now, if that person didn't have a sense of self, it's as if their knowledge is still in the unknown. And with the vastness of the world, all knowledge is in the unknown. It's like we're on a rock in the middle of nowhere. We created our own. We started linking, you know, symbols and sounds and images, and we think that's it. It's like the archaic revival of the collective state of mystery. Like an individual being. So when you look at children, at least, they're like pure wonder. Because they don't know what's going on, it's like life is just run towards it, and then its meaning appears. But after you get exposed to life, your memories provide blueprints of what reality needs to be. And you know, this is a strange thing to say, but there was a time where I was thinking, what is the source of suffering? And I realized it's information. When people have information, right, their life becomes conditional, and when those conditions are not met, their reaction to the moment is like emotional disharmony, which is translated as suffering. It's like all that infinity can do is be. So if the meaning of life is in regards to the doingness, in regards to the doership, in regards to motive for action, this is a sentence where people might not have heard, but eternity is not moving, but infinity is. So the freedom of infinity is to realize all movement is non-locally being watched. Desire is for the more, right? People, when there's a desire for something, it's like the person wants to have something added to their moment. And if there were infinite additions, it's like the only desire would be for the equation to fulfill. It's like there's space, and a part of space has noticed that there's space. And this part of space, when it's individualized, there's endless things to do. When it's non-individualized, it's just space. You know, there's this view in certain traditions where they say the soul enters the body, like after, I don't know, when the child is still in the womb, like at some time. Where it's like the soul enters the body. But rather than matter, the soul entering matter, what if the soul is space? Do you know? Or I don't want to say if the soul enters space, if it's beyond space, but it's like this whole time we have a material body, and we have the material body inside the sort of space body. Okay, there's some action in the chat section. Welcome everyone. Okay. Esmeralda says, I don't think infinity is the end of meaning. I think it's just the very beginning. It is like a beginning without an end, right? And with the meaning of something is like you got to put the bookmark somewhere, you know? Or if you're drawing something, you got to like stop at some point and be like, all right, this is my artwork. See, that's the challenge of infinity. Right? Infinity has no end, so it becomes endless experience. If we are truly infinite beings, the meaning of life becomes endlessly experiencing, right? Now I'm saying that if you were a person who was endlessly, infinitely experiencing, as if imagine you were a being and you had you had awakened in endless civilizations, and in each civilization you had the urge to advance it. It's like after some point you'd be like, what is doing the advancing? You know, it's as if from an outer search for meaning we return to an inner meaninglessness. That inner meaninglessness is watching, right? And if it doesn't react to what it watches, then in some sense there is no meaning. You see, this is in a metaphysical perspective, guys. You see, to me, it's not you can't put life in a sentence and be like, that's it. You know? You know, it's like somebody's like, what is the meaning of life? You know, it's like the meaning of life is to be good. It's like, really? Just that? You know, it's like, what about everything else that surpasses the definitions of what is, for example, just good, right? The thing is that in a changing world, because it's slow, I honestly think it's a speed issue. I think that if we sped up, if experience was getting closer to the speed of light, it would completely realize this reality is a simulation. And keep in mind, guys, I'm speaking in a metaphysical context. What I'm saying is, it's like it can't really be applied because to the physical human being you see now. Why? Because it's like our body is limited. We're like candles. Because we're candles, we're like, oh man, we got some light. We got to do something with this light. So endless meaning there, right? There's like meaning to life because it ends, right? But I'm saying that if life didn't end, then it's like, what meaning would the beginning have? You would never know the meaning of how, even if it had a specific beginning, right? But you would never know its meaning. You know, I wrote something on my Facebook the other day, and I was vocalizing. I was pretty much like, how would I say it? It was as if time, the human beings, and space were having a conversation, and then time is like, you're mine, and then the human beings, which have the ego, they're like, no, you're mine, as if in response to time, and then space, at the end of it, says, you're all mine, ha 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 ha, starts laughing, you know. So time gives meaning to matter, and to human psychology, a timeless state would be a selfless state. And I feel this is the great switch. I don't know when this switch is going to be turned on, but right now it's like individual life. So the phases of it would be that it would, right, you think of it this way, what does an individual body do? First it's alone, right? Then the individual body meets others, then it forms a group. Now let's take this notion for the individual mind, right? Let's consider for a moment that because there's an individual body, there's an individual mind. Now that individual mind would be alone, and the mind is like a universe of its own, so it would be like one universe. Then this universe realizes there's other universes, so we have a sort of mini multiverse of minds, you know, of inner realms at least. eventually the minds will become one singular thing, as if like drops on a windshield, like merging with one another. So there will be, let's say, a collective mind. When that collective mind arises, there will be two sorts of life. There would be one's individual life. You can forget your collective being and just live individualistically, or in some sense you are the collective, right? That's the thing. Our whole meaning of life is surrounding our body, beyond the body, in regards to collective presence. The meaning of life would be to be all of it. It's as if you are all of it. It's like you're living in a house, then you realize you're the house, and you're like, oh my God, I've been living in a part of my own attention, in the presence of my universal attention, or massive existential endless attention, On the way to becoming an infinite person, creativity will be the surprise. That means it's like one answer to what can an infinite person do, not what its meaning is, but what can an infinite being do. It can infinitely create, right? You either infinitely remember or you infinitely create, and when you create, you're using your memories. And the way the psychology works is that any time a person expresses themselves, they I shouldn't say reset, they update their own vision of the ideas they have for the meaning, In the chat section, Samantha says, interesting, been thinking about mountains and the highs and lows of life. You really do have to be strong to get to the real peak. Here's the crazy thing. There's so many ways up a mountain, but there's one peak. There's one peak. You know what it is? It's like we have this view that reality started from nothing, and then something arrived. So let's say that nothing is zero, and then something arrives in the space, so we have one, and then this something goes into a cycle of change, so we have chaos and order, we have duality. Now this duality never ends, right? So what happens? We go to infinity. Now an infinite being either has to remember its dualism, forget it's infinite, remember it's dualistic, forget it's dualistic, remember it's singular, right? Or forget it's singular, or return to the void, or from infinity return to the void. I honestly feel there's a cycle, and the cycle of karma is actually 0, 1, 2, infinity, 0, 1, 2, infinity, 0, 1, 2, infinity. Infinity has nowhere to go. That's the problem. It completely, you surpass, you transcend location. So the future is beyond location. The very far future, which completely makes sense in why the yogis, the ancient yogis, they were like trying to renounce materialism. They were trying to see what they were before the environment was defining them. And speaking of ancient yogis, I have, it's called the 8 Upanishads with commentary of Shankaracharya. So I'm going to open a random page and see how random it is. Okay. Let me see. So I'm going to go to the beginning of the chapter of what I'm reading. Jesus Christ, how many pages do I need to? I'm waiting for the day where they make pocket Upanishads, pocket Tao Te Chings, you know. Okay guys, there's no way I'm gonna read 20 pages, but anyways, I'm just gonna read from the beginning and then I'll read the page I opened to some. So Visva experiences the external things and is all-pervading, but Taijasa experiences the internal things. Similarly, Prajna is a mass of consciousness. It is but the same entity that is thought of in three ways. The purport of the verse is this: the transcendence of the three states by the self, its unity, purity, and unrelatedness to anything, are proved by the fact of its existence in the three states in succession and of its being interlinked by memory as I. This is borne out by the illustration of the great fish and others in the Vedic text. Visva is met with the right eye, which is his place of experience, but Taijasa is inside the mind. Prajna is the space within the heart. In three ways he exists in the body. This verse aims at discovering how all the three, starting with Visva, are experienced in the waking state itself. Visva, the witness of gross objects, is primarily experienced in the Dakshina right eye, that is his mukha, mouth, or place of experience. And this is in accordance with the Vedic text. This being who is the right eye is named Indaha. He who is Indha, he who is Indha or Vaisvanara, possessed of effulgence, the Virat self, identifying itself with the cosmic gross body that is within the sun, and he who is the individual self, Visva and the right eye are identical. Objection. Somebody's objecting this guy. Hiranyagarbha is different, and different also is the soul that is the knower of the body and senses, that exists in the right eye as the controller of the eyes, that is the cognizer, and that is the master of the body. Answer: not so, for in reality no difference is admitted in accordance with the Vedic text, one effulgent being hidden in all creatures, and the Samriti text, O Sion of the Bharta dynasty, know me again as the knower of the bodies and senses in all the bodies. Indivisible and yet existing in all beings as though divided. Though Vishva exists equally in all the organs, he is specifically referred to as existing in the right eye, for in the right eye is noticed the clarity of his Vishva's perception. The soul with its abode in the right eye perceives some form, and then closing the eyes and recollecting that very form sees it manifested, Manasyanta, inside the mind in the form of impressions as in a dream. As it is the case here, so it is in dream. Therefore, though Taijasa is within the mind, he is really the same as Visva. On the cessation of the activity called memory, Prajna sitting, oh my god, how do you pronounce it? Akasa Kahardi in the space within the heart becomes free from the diversity of objects and their perceiving subject, and continues to be mere mass of consciousness, for then there is no functioning of the mind. Perception and recollection are merely vibrations of the mind. In the absence of these, there is mere existence in an unmanifested state in the heart, in identification with the vital force, as it is said in the Vedic text. It is the vital force indeed that engulfs all these. Taijasa is the same as Hiranyagarbha, because of existing in the mind, as is declared by the Vedic texts. Being attached, he together with the work attains that result to which his subtle body or mind is attached. This Purusha means consciousness, that I know. This Purusha identified with the mind and resplendent is realized within the heart. and so on. Objection. The vital force is a manifested, perceptible reality in deep sleep, and the organs merge into it. How can the vital force be unmanifested? Answer. That is no defect, for an undifferentiated thing is characterized by absence of any distinction of time and space. Among those who think themselves to be intimately connected with the individualized vital force, although the vital force appears to be differentiated so long as individual identification with prana persists still, since the self-identification with any specialty resulting from the delimitation of the body is absent in the vital force during sleep. The vital force is then surely undifferentiated, just as in the case of people identifying themselves with the individualized vital force. The vital force becomes unmanifested after death, similar to is the unmanifestedness in the state of absence of distinctions in deep sleep. In the case of those who identify themselves with the vital force, and similar also it is potentially to produce effects, and similar also it's potentially to produce effects. And the witness in the state of unmanifestedness and deep sleep is the same. Moreover, since the individuals who identify themselves with limitations or witness those states appear as identical with the unmanifested, the foregoing attributes in whom everything becomes undifferentiated, who is a mass of consciousness, etc., become appreciate with regard to him. Prajna in deep sleep, identifying himself with prana. And there's also the reason adduced earlier. Objection. Why should the unmanifested be called prana, vital force? Answer. Because of the Vedic text, O good-looking one, the individual soul conditioned by the mind is surely tethered to, that is to say, has for its goal the prana. There we go. This sentence literally fits what I'm trying to say. It says, "Oh, good-looking one." You know, it's too many compliments here. The individual soul conditioned by the mind is surely tethered to, that is to say, has for its goal the prana. That means the ego's destination. The ego is trying to be the void. Our psychology is trying to be space. Is seeking space in accordance to this. Seeking to be space. That means it's like I was everything in matter, been there, done that. In that text, the word prana means Brahman that was introduced as existence in the sentence. O good-looking one, in the beginning this was existence alone. Answer. That's the objection. Answer. That is no valid objection, for existence was assumed there to be the seed of creation. Though in that sentence the existence Brahman is denoted by the word prana, still that existence Brahman is called prana as well as existence, without ruling out its being the source of the emergence of individual beings. Had the seedless, non-casual state of Brahman been meant, the text would have declared, not this, from which speech turns back. That Brahman is surely different from the known, and again, it is above the unknown, guys. Right? So, if the human psychology's purpose is to get to the unknown, even beyond that, truth is like smiling. Sometimes, I'm fascinated by how much we, exist to realize we don't. Oh, God. Okay, let me speed this up. If Brahman, in its seedless non-casual state, be meant there, then the individuals that merge in it in deep sleep and dissolution can't reasonably re-emerge, and there will be the possibility of the freed souls returning to take birth again. For in either case, the absence of cause is a common factor. Besides, in the absence of any seed of the worldly state to be burnt by the knowledge of Brahman, knowledge itself becomes useless. Hence, existence is referred to as prana in the Chandogya Upanishad, and in all the Upanishads it is spoken of as the cause in all the Upanishads by assuming it for the time being to be the seed of others. And it is because of this that it is referred to by refuting its causal state in such Vedic texts as superior to the other, superior, imperishable. Superior to the superior imperishable Maya, from which speech turns back. Again, not this, that supremely real state, free from causality, relation with body, etc., and modes of waking, etc., of that very entity that is called prajna, will be spoken separately in its aspect as the turiya. The causal state too is verily experienced in the body, inasmuch as an awakened man is seen to have such recollection as, I did not know anything in my deep sleep. Hence it is said, Trida dehe it's actually dehe, Trida dehe yavasvita, existing in three ways in the body. Visva ever enjoys the gross, Taijasa enjoys the subtle, and similarly Prajna enjoys bliss. No enjoyment to be threefold. The gross satisfies Visva, and the subtle satisfies Taijasa, and so also joy satisfies Prajna. No enjoyment to be threefold. It says, he who knows both these, the enjoyment that there is in the three states, and that which is declared to be the enjoyer there, does not become affected even while enjoying. Trisu Damasu, in the three states of waking and the rest, there is but one bhajyam, object of enjoyment that appears in triple form, known as gross, subtle, and bliss. And the entity known by the name of Visva, Taijasa, and Prajna is Prakiratita, declared to be the one Bhokta, enjoyer, because of their being unified together as one through the single concept of I am that, and because there is no distinction so far as cognition by them is concerned. Alright guys, I'm going to jump to the page that I opened. It says the earlier two are eluded with dream and sleep, but prajna is endued with dreamless sleep. People of firm conviction do not see either sleep or dream in turiya. Savapna, dream, consists in false perception, like that of a snake on a rope. Nidra, sleep, has been spoken of as darkness consisting in non-perception of reality. By these two, dream and sleep, are endured Visva and Taijasa, and this is why they have been referred to as conditioned by the states of cause and effect, whereas Prajna is conditioned by sleep alone, unassociated with dream, and hence he has been referred to as conditioned by the causal state. Niskita, those with firm conviction, the knowers of Brahman, do not see both these in turiya, these being of an opposite nature, like darkness with regard to the sun. Therefore it has been said that turiya is not conditioned by the states of cause and effect. It is being shown when one becomes firmly rooted in turiya, dream belongs to one who sees falsely, and sleep to one who does not know reality. When the two errors of these are removed, one attains the state that is turiya. Dream comes to one who cognizes reality falsely, like the cognition of a snake on a rope in the states of dream and waking. Sleep belonging to one not cognizing reality is equally present in all the three states. Dream and sleep being the common features of both Visva and Taijasa, they are treated as one. Since in these two states, sleep is of a secondary importance owing to the predominance of false perception, the error in these states is equated with dream. But in the third state, the error takes the form of sleep alone, consisting in non-perception of reality. Therefore, when Tayo of these two, Visva and Taijasa and Prajna, existing in the states of effect and cause, the two errors consisting in false perception and non-perception and constituting the two bondages in the form of effect and cause are eradicated on the cognition of the supreme reality, then one attains the state of Turiya. The idea is that as he does not perceive both kinds of bondages there, he becomes firmly rooted in Turiya. When the individual is sleeping under the influence of beginningless Maya is awakened, then he realizes the birthless, sleepless, dreamless non-doer. I think that's a good place to end it off. So, as if there's a division of truth in three dimensions, because there's ignorance in two, we can't know the third. Once the false perception of, it makes. Here's the thing. It's like saying that the sense of self is like the illusion, and the different states we're going is for the sense of self. This whole notion of the rope and the snake is really shared a lot in these Vedic texts, where it's like it's like you see a rope and you think it's a snake, right? But it's actually a rope, and the superior reality is like that. This desire to materialism is like us seeing a snake, but in actuality, it's just a rope, right? There's this idea that human beings model the universe. You can say this is the major difference, that there is a physical model to the world in front of our eyes, and then behind our eyes, this physical model extends into an abstract, subjective model. I've honestly thought about the meaning of my life. And on some level, it has been very simple. It's been like, what is the meaning of a bird on a tree? What is the meaning of a plant growing? It's kind of like the meaning of life is just to be present and to happen alongside everything in nature. But when I think about why am I present on a rock in the middle of nowhere, hovering in emptiness and everything being self-created knowledge, the spark of self-creation, it's like truth had a potential and it was actualized, and this is what it got. I think about often that in this life we see the emergence of individual beings, so why shouldn't there be the emergence of collective beings? We have this notion that individuals give life to other individuals, but it could be that it was a collective that gave life to the first individual. It could be that truth is post-time and space. When I think about the sentence, why am I alive? The why is just left to the I. If you identify as a mechanic, the meaning of your life would be to fix machines, to create machines, to maybe even destroy machines that only you understand. If you identify as a gardener, the meaning of life is to fulfill that role. So there is the identity creates the potential, and it's like an unknown attention actualizes that potential. Now the unknown, as I was reading the Vedas, the Upanishads, it was talking about how it's like beyond God, what was it? I can't remember the name of it. Visva, whatever. There's a state where there's an attention that is beyond, let's say, the self, and it is just conditioned by cause. We think cause and effect are in the same room. They're two different dimensions. Causally, there is no effect. Everything is still just cause. It's like, think of the religious notion where God is everywhere. That means if God created the universe, if God is everywhere, God can in everywhere create the universe. So there's a potential for endless universes, endless worlds to be created. So the potential is there. The potential of all the things that may happen in this life is here. But now to actualize them gives a purpose to the causal being. So imagine there's a being that's just on, like, I'm just the source of everything, right? And this being's like, what do I do though? It's like, I'm just being the source, and it creates an effect. The cause creates an effect, and now there is a game of life. So it's like the causal position was bored, right? So effects arose. I've wondered about this notion that, of course, I'm not attempting to humanize God, but I'm saying that, it's like, if human beings weren't here, what would God be looking at? From the Abrahamic sense. So many fluctuations that memory will never be satisfied. Just the nature of a changing world makes information not the truth of it, and our species is conditioned itself to seek information rather than advancing its state. This could be why, for example, appreciation or love surpasses infinite understanding. We think we're human beings, but there's being, and the human is a part of it. The nature of being surpasses the nature of the human mind, which is action-oriented. You know what it's like? It's like we're moving to realize we never moved. And then the question's like, how can we realize we never moved if we're, infinitely moving towards understanding that, And potential, that means if reality was in two dimensions, a potential one and one where it was, let's say, kinetic, it was being actualized. A potential dimension and a kinetic dimension. The potential dimension cannot move. The cause of reality is not a thing. It's the closest thing to it can be nothing, no thing. That means our effect is embodied. Our cause is unknown and disembodied. The persona is the known mask of the unknown. You know, people are meditating for stress relief. But I think meditation is to be still and just watching the moment and wondering how the nature of intelligence is happening in the moment, watching the event of your mind. I feel that is literally our one of our only options of surpassing the infinite meaningless. It's like, how do you get out of a infinite material simulation? By realizing you were never in it. Energy doesn't have a life, but the energy, the part of energy that transforms, which is, let's say, the part of a human life, like which is the human, it's like that has a life, which is very complex, because it's like energy is not alive, but it is the source of life, you know. And if we have this notion that a presence, a changeless presence, is in the causal position, and its effect is changing personalities or incarnations, then it's as if emptiness is waiting to realize it's empty. Or I shouldn't say emptiness, I should say it's like the cause is waiting to realize it has always been cause. The effect is the dream. So the desire makes your attention go to the effect, but realization makes you realize you're in the causal position. So there was never an effect. If the cause is still there, the cause didn't change. So the effect becomes the illusion of the cause. And if truth is simulating an illusion for itself, then the simulation is starting from the truth. So the simulation is in truth. I'm reaching a point, guys, where I'm like, an infinite being transcends the infinity and is just being. Beyond the human room, truth just is. In the chat section, Lorna says, do you think ego is tied to animal instinct? I mean, yeah, the ego is the sense of self that comes from the body, you know? It's like, you know, it's like saying, like, what would you look like if you had no body? What kind of ego would you have, you know? Unless we consider the inner realms to be a dimension of their own, and then you have a subjective body, so then it could be that the ego arises from the body, from the animal instinct, but is not held by the body only. So after the lifetime, it's like saying, like, after a person dies, they're still themselves, but how? Right? So it's as if it's something more than the body there. Anyways, guys, regardless of whatever I've said in this episode, this doesn't mean life is meaningless. It just means that in a long enough time span, it's you know, it's so if life is too big to be understood, it requires to be appreciated, as Terence McKenna suggests. And in regards to it being appreciated, you know, it becomes closer to an emotional truth. So it would be like saying an immortal person, its emotions would be its only urge to surpass an infinite game. It's as if, like, you're a player in a game that doesn't end, and you're like, okay, how long do I play this? How many goals do I score? At some point you realize only when you get off the field, get off, let's say, that pitch, you're not a player anymore. You're an observer. So beyond the game of life, you are an observer of how nature is being. It doesn't mean your attention is not to reality. It means your attention is beyond reality. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. The mystery of reality goes on. The secrets of our eyes go beyond our eyes. Thank you for listening. Much blessings and namaste.